The Stars and Stripes show is brought to you by the U.S. Embassy. It's Gabs FM, powered to engage your world. And of course, welcome to the show. Kings and Queens is the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM. Now, let me tell you something. Whether you are aware or not, there is a world water crisis, and it has been the focus of Alarm for decades. And despite public awareness, some action, the situation has only gotten worse. Yes, we have a water crisis globally. Millions of people worldwide do not have adequate water supply for drinking, cooking, and basic sanitation. Climate-induced weather changes has increased the incident and degree of extreme drought, with the consequent degradation of watersheds, wells, and so on. Severe storms have caused unequaled volumes of rain, with floods and erosion, increased pollution, and a lot more. More Botswana, we're not capturing enough of the rainwater that flows through our cities and towns, and of course that is what I have. I've got phenomenal experts in the building. Let me start with the director of the USAID country director, Ann Dix. How are you, Ann? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Swift. It's great to be here today. Fantastic.
How was your week?
Oh, it was great.
No, that's great. And of course, on the partner spotlight, I've got Professor Yashon Oma, Professor of Geomatics at the University of Botswana. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir.
What is geomatics?
Geomatics, it will take us a whole day to define that or to describe that, but it's the science that deals with the analysis, the capture and analysis of spatial data.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You know, sometimes I think that, I didn't do myself justice at school, I'm not a science. I'm a creative, okay?
You're doing fine.
Thank you so much. And of course, we have Professor Ditiro Benson Moalafi, Head of Wildlife and Aquatic Resources from Botswana University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, otherwise known as Buan.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I think Buan is doing a fantastic job in human capital. That's just my opinion, okay?
Yes, we are trying our best.
No, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much. Look, of course, it is still World Women's Month, which is the month of March. So we're going to start with you, Anne. Look, water. Water is, in my personal opinion, is one of the resources that is not adequately priced. It's heavily subsidized no matter where you live in the world. It is a heavily subsidized resource. And that is the psychology or our relationship with water. We don't really appreciate the value, the true value of water. Let's talk about what the United States, what is the global water strategy as a country, as the U.S. government?
Yes, thank you, Swift.
The
U.S. Global Water Strategy guides all U.S. government investments through 2027 to advance health, prosperity, stability, and resilience through improved water resources management and increased access to safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene. This week, the UN convened its first conference on water since 1977 in New York City.
Since 1977?
Yes, it's been a long time.
Absolutely. Look, what water cooperation or support does the U.S. government provide to ensure that there is, equitable access and climate-resilient water and sanitation infrastructure in Botswana? A lot of our farmers are trying to transition and understand, the impact of climate change, for example. Water harvesting is something that is so important in our cities. Walk us through that.
In Botswana, we've supported WASH efforts through our Resilient Waters project. Our focus has been to secure the supply of water for the Okavango Delta by improving land use upstream, and the Limpopo River Basin, which supplies water for 60% of Botswana's population.
60%? I didn't even know that.
Most of this water is consumed by the people of Botswana, and it's surface water, which is highly susceptible to being polluted. And surface water comes from rainfall, which is increasingly unpredictable due to climate change, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Absolutely. Look, academia is so important when it comes to these issues. There's a wealth of knowledge globally. There's a wealth of knowledge around Africa, in the US, in Botswana. Talk to us about collaboration between tertiary institutions. And of course, what are we doing to provide those kind of collaborative efforts to provide sustainable solutions to Botswana's water challenges?
For Gaborone, the University of Botswana and Buan competed successfully with a global cast of characters for a research grant. And the research grant is to look at the land use and land cover dynamics of surface water quality and the reservoirs, the surface water quality of the reservoirs that feed Gaborone.
That's brilliant. Well, if you've just joined us, welcome to the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM. 3956962 is our studio line, plus 267-395-6962 is our WhatsApp line, and of course channel 844 on your favorite DSTV bouquet, and of course text message line is 14962. Today we're discussing water, one of the most important resources. I mean, our bodies are fueled by water. The benefits of hydration are limitless, from your cooking, your sanitation. Every human being deserves to have access to clean drinking water. And did you know that we have a global water crisis? I've even read as far, just to share with you, and I've even read as far as water cartels now starting to form and strategize for the next 3 decades because of the pending water crisis, and understanding that the wealth is within water. And water is such a precious resource, and the good thing, that one thing that the good Lord or God has blessed the nation of Botswana, we've got a lot of underground water in this particular country. Well, moving swiftly along, pun intended, let's continue with the show. Gentlemen, I hope you are both still there, and I'm going to have a panel discussion with the both of you. Simply from this point of view, you guys come from our academic point of view. You understand the importance of sharing information, capturing it, researching it, and of course that translates into policy, that translates into the laws that govern this country, and it's important that we have these conversations with the both of you. Okay, let's start with Professor Moalafi. Motsadi wake, in your opinion, mo Botswana, what are some of our water challenges? And let me also extend that question. Are Botswana conscious and aware we've got water challenges, just from your point of view?
Thank you, Swift, and good afternoon, listeners. Thank you, Gabs FM, for hosting us. Thank you, U.S. Embassy.
Yes.
Actually, Botswana, they are aware that we have challenges of water. I know, of course, before I go to looking at the key challenges,
yes,
you elucidated on the issue of water as a value, as an economic value.
Yes.
Water, yes, is an economic value, but also access to water is a human right.
Absolutely.
And water also is a social good.
Yes.
So it's always a balancing act between social equity, ecosystem sustainability, to make sure that we don't waste water and we preserve the environment, and also to make sure that people pay for the right value of water.
Yes.
So it's always a balancing act.
Jesus. And a very difficult one from a public sector point of view, from a private sector point of view, from a social point of view. I like the way you actually introduced the subject. We must understand that this is a very, very difficult balancing act.
Yes,
you can continue.
Yes, let me go on. Of course, we know that we are in a very important week since the 22nd, ending yesterday water conference in New York. And preceding the conference, the UN Secretary General had this to say: the UN 2023 Water Conference in March must result in a bold action water agenda that gives our world's lifeblood the commitment it deserves. We know that, of course, you are also looking towards the World Water Week in Stockholm, Sweden in August, which will focus on innovation at a time of unprecedented challenges. Of course, let me appreciate that all these are geared towards attainment of Sustainable Development Goal 6, water and sanitation for all, and with its targets and global indicators. I would like to highlight two targets under SDG 6, for example. We have the drinking water with the indicator of proportion of population using safely managed drinking water services, and also the GD target 6.2, sanitation and hygiene.
Absolutely.
With the indicator proportion of population using safely managed sanitation services. Consequently, all this SDG 6 is very, very critical to attainment of other SDGs, like we can talk of food security, SDG 2, we can talk public health, SDG 3, we can talk poverty, SDG 1.
Yeah, because it spills over into the various SDGs. No, I like that.
Yes, because water cuts across all the sectors of the economy, and water is life itself. Let me zoom into the challenges.
Yes,
I'm going to highlight 4 challenges pertaining to water supply in Botswana.
Okay.
The first is on financing infrastructure for bulk water supply, which I will expand before I move to the others subsequently.
Please do.
So in terms of how we are doing in terms of proportion of population using safely managed drinking water, we are at 92% as a country against the sub-Saharan average of 30%. It's only Botswana and South Africa we have gone beyond 90%, but it's not enough. This actually access to basic water covers water availability at our homes, and for those who doesn't have water in their homes, at least we are looking at a radius of 500 meters to access water, and also in farming and sparse populations, because also we bouse water to our people.
Yes.
If I can reflect on this, for the last 2 years, our government have spent about 30% of national development budget on water infrastructure.
Wow.
So you can see how our government also is trying. But of course, we have challenges because we finance it from our pockets as a country. As a middle-coming country, we no longer have access to donations or grants. So this is a challenge. So bulk water supply was very predominant in the NDP 11 and also in the transition NDP. And in NDP 12, the focus will be on network reticulation. Of course, sanitation also is coming. I will discuss sanitation later. If I can highlight, we have also the Botswana Water Investment Program, which emanates from the AU's heads of state government who adopted the program to try and bridge the gap in terms of water infrastructure in Africa. This is done by mobilizing about $30 billion towards the 2030 in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals target and the time frame. So the Botswana Water Investment Partnership will facilitate transformation and improve on investment outlook for water security and sustainable sanitation by leveraging financial resources from various sources. I think you might have heard, it's now public knowledge, it's all over media, that our President, His Excellency in the US, has been chosen as the chair for the Change Makers Award program, with the initiative seeking to highlight experiences and the way water decisions have built climate resilience, and awards to go to those who use innovation and technology to meet Sustainable Development Goal 6 targets. So I'll then move to the next challenge, which is an adequate sanitation infrastructure. So if you can recall, in 2002, the Millennium Development Goal target under Goal 7 was modified to include sanitation. Initially, sanitation was separated with water supply networks. So we still have to catch up, and we have a long way to go. The United Nations Secretary General subsequently in 2008 declared that year a water sanitation year. You can see that in terms of sanitation, we are lagging behind. That's why now when we look at proportion of population using safely managed sanitation services in Botswana is 80%, and Sub-Saharan Africa is 21%, South Africa is 93%. But we still have a long way to do. First of all, when you talk sanitation, first of all, bulk water supply should be there. Mostly when we plan in Botswana, we take bulk water to the people, reticulate it, and then sanitation comes. That's why sanitation sometimes will be lagging behind. You might also be aware of the PPP model, through which we are trying also to recover wastewater through the Glen Value wastewater treatment plant, reuse it, and then blend it into potable water use and for other water uses. Currently, the treatment plant is running at 40 megaliters per day. The idea is to ultimately treat this water to different water classes, and we are moving in the right direction because this is very key. We are protecting the environment by making sure that we treat water to the required bracket classes, and also we are improving water security by tapping this untapped potential water resource. The third challenge is impact of climate change on water resources.
Absolutely.
We have a loan from the World Bank as a country of Botswana at 145 million US dollars or 1.8 billion pula that is running for different projects within water security spectrum.
Oh, wow.
Currently, we also have this project particularly to do with climate change on prioritizing resilient investments for water sector in Botswana, in which the government is partnering with the World Bank. So we really have ideas, we have efforts there. The main objective being to develop a national and transboundary water resilient strategy for Botswana. Of course, we are 80% transboundary dependent. But of course, climate change is not on our side, together with increasing water demand. So the last one, I would say, inadequate monitoring of the components of the water system that should otherwise inform decision making through research. And all these 4 points that I have highlighted, you'll see that they're going to manifest through our project that my learned professor will present at a later stage. Let me end this by quoting this from the SADC Action Plan on Integrated Water Resources Development. They say water resources infrastructure, including data collection for information and improving the knowledge base, is a critical component in the provision of sustainable water resources management and services. But of course, they left sanitation. So sanitation is there also as my emphasis. Thank you.
Well, it's Gabs FM Power to Engage. You will, Prof, definitely enroll into your faculty. That was Professor Ditiro Benson Moalafi, Head of Wildlife and Aquatic Resources from the Botswana University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking water, and water is a deal maker for the Sustainable Development Goals and for the health and prosperity of people and, of course, the planet. But our progress on water-related goals and targets remains alarmingly off track and, of course, jeopardizing the entire sustainable development agenda. This is the role that the Botswana has to play. This is the role that the American has to play. And, of course, this is the role that every citizen of planet Earth must play. But we're going to continue conversation. Do not go away. On the other side of this, I'll be speaking to Professor Yashon Oma, who's the Professor of Geomatics at the University of Botswana.
4.1 FM. The Stars and Stripes show is brought to you by the U.S. Embassy.
It's Gabs FM Power to Engage your world, and of course, welcome back to the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM, hashtag America in Botswana. And today we're talking about water. We're talking about one of the world's most precious resource. And in the building, I have had the honor of speaking to the USAID Country Director and Dix. I also have in the building Professor Ditiro Benson Moalafi, Head of Wildlife and Aquatic Resources from the Botswana University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And of course, I am moving to Professor Yashon Oma, Professor of Geomatics from the University of Botswana. Look, Prof, I know you're involved in some form of initiative that is a partnership. What is that initiative? What does it mean? What is it about? Just give us the who, what, where, and why.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for hosting us.
Anytime.
And, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me also thank the U.S. Embassy for organizing this sitting today, or this discussion today.
Absolutely.
I think I will respond to or continue from where Prof. Moalafi actually stopped, and he highlighted key issues regarding challenges of water in Botswana.
Absolutely.
Towards the tail end of his presentation, he talked about the impacts of climate change on water resources. He also talked about inadequate monitoring of components of the water supply system. So the research project that we are working on, which is sponsored,
it's a research project.
Yes, it's a research project.
Okay.
So I'll give you a little bit of the background of the research project.
Please do.
And then a little bit about the technicalities of the scientific aspects of the project. So to the background, we are then trying to address those two critical issues in this particular project. The project is funded by USAID since 2021, and we are likely to continue up to 2024. But we also appreciate the University of Botswana Office for Research and Development, who gave us the initial seed funding for this same project.
Wow.
What we are looking at in order to address these issues of climate change and monitoring systems in terms of water supply is to look at the interaction between the water as a resource and how it's being impacted by what we are doing as human beings. And that is to do with industrialization, urbanization, agricultural activities, and etc., as well as how climate change is affecting the amount of water we have in our dams and the quality of water that we have in our dams.
For example, Setswana, okay, in Setswana culture, Rehela Jarata, we sweep our yards. You know, the front of the yard, you'll find we use a straw broom to actually sweep the yard. Is that some of the human impacts that you touch on? Because obviously with the flow of water and things like permaculture and holding water, because water flows with a certain amount of nutrients that can be used to treat the composition of the soil. Is that some of the stuff that, would, speak to your line of your research project?
Yes, for the general listener, that would be correct. But we are also looking at the bigger picture. Who is having which farm where, and what is he doing on this particular farm in terms of fertilizers, for example?
Yes.
Who is having what factory where, and what effluent is this person discharging into the surface water system, for example?
Okay.
So this will have serious repercussions in terms of affecting the quality and the health of the water that is resident in the dams.
I like that. Well done. This goes to show the power of collaboration between USAID, collaboration between, you mentioned another stakeholder. Just touch on that stakeholder.
So on the stakeholders, we are looking at, this project is funded by the USAID. Nationally, we are working with BUAN, we are working with BUST, but we're also engaging Water Utilities Corporation, as I will explain later, because they're the key stakeholders. And some of the innovations that we are trying to develop in this project are likely to benefit water utilities and also respond to some of the critical challenges we have. But also we have principal partners from the University of Michigan or Michigan State University in the US, who's also involved in the project. The USAID Botswana is quite active in the project. USAID South Africa is also involved in the project, and other stakeholders who find this project quite interesting and significant to not just to the nation but to the region, because what we are looking at is the surface water quality and the surface water quantity that is available within Botswana, and that is mainly within the Limpopo River Basin, but we are not covering the entire Limpopo River Basin, but what we are doing in the Botswana side can also be replicated in the other riparian countries that share the bigger Limpopo. So that's why we have so many stakeholders who are on board in this project. Are
you able to share the value of the project, the research project, how much, the U.S. government has put in? Are you able to allude, are you at liberty to share those kind of details so that the Botswana understands, how important collaboration is, how much we are doing as these various stakeholders to contribute to water security?
I think we are at liberty to do that. We are talking at initial funding of about 2 million pula.
Okay.
And I think we are likely to go further as we develop the project much more.
And the thing is, your role as academia informs policy. Your roles as academia will eventually inform, some of our national laws. I mean, I was actually having a conversation with some architects and from a town planning point of view, I was saying, from a town planning point of view, it's more than time that we include legislation that, number one, introduces water harvesting. And how do we use water and reuse water within our legislation so that tomorrow when you're building a city, a town, a house, there are these elements, and that's why your role is so important, so that now it translates into the multiplier effect. That introduces my next question. We're living in a digital world. Technology is playing such a huge, important component. I was actually reading sometimes last year about, how you can put in specific specific sensors and water pipes that serve as from an app base and a desktop base that allows you to track when there's a leakage in a certain part of your water system. How important is technology in this water security component of what we're discussing today?
Extremely important. And actually that is one of the areas where we are focusing on. But before I go to that, let's talk on the legislative side before we lose it. So what we are doing is actually more or less what is called policy-informed decision that is backed on science or based on science. So we are trying to develop empirical evidences which can be used by policymakers, by decision makers, to develop new models that can be used to conserve or manage water resources. Now, so in developing legislation, there has to be an evidence as to why you have to do it. So that is partly what we are trying to do.
Okay.
To the sensor side, specifically, so one of the things that we are doing in this particular project is to try and see how can we monitor our dams in a near real-time kind of scenario. In other words, can I go today and tell the quality of water in Gaborone Dam after it has rained, for example, or before it rains? And so we are deploying what is called, technically today we call it disruptive technologies. So disruptive technologies, one of these technologies is in terms of sensors. So we are using UAVs and we are using satellites to monitor the water body.
Wow.
And then we want to transform what we've seen from the UAV sensor or the satellite sensor to be equivalent to what somebody would have gone to the field, sampled, brought to the office, and tested.
Wow.
So why do we call it disruptive? The whole process using the conventional method takes a lot of time and a lot of money.
So the turnaround time, yes.
So it's called, you're changing the value chain of that particular product, if you can say. So we are using, or we are deploying UAVs. We program our UAVs to move 300 meters, 1 kilometer, go and sample the water, not physically, but by imaging, and then bring that image, we store it, and we can do that for the entire dam. So we have done that for 2 dams, Gaborone Dam and Boka Dam, and in together with the Water Utilities Corporation. So they are doing their conventional sampling, and we're using our drone technology to also sample. So we are at the stage where we are now trying to say, can we be able to empirically show that we can turn around the rate or the speed at which we know our water quality, not using the conventional methods, but using these disruptive technologies. So what you're talking about, the sensor technology, that is where we are heading. And that's one of the focus areas of the research project that is funded by USAID.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stars and Stripes radio show, where we're discussing water from different components. I like what you said, Prof. And it also goes to show the opportunities that are available for young people who are in the tech industry, because these are the very essence of what entrepreneurship is, resolving problems. And this is what we need to be discussing in terms of how do we collaborate across different industries for common good. And this is definitely a step in the right direction. Look, let me ask you this last question as we close up. What would you say to the nation? What would you say to the nation of Botswana? What are your last words in line with somebody who understands, number one, that there is a global water crisis, right? Number two, who understands, and is obviously from an academic point of view, you still see the gaps where there are opportunities from an entrepreneurship point of view, from an academic, from a social. I liked what Prof. Moalafi spoke about. He spoke about the economic value, the social good, human rights, and creating a balancing act. Let me afford you this opportunity to share your parting statement from your point of view, Prof. Omar.
Thank you very much. I think from what we've seen so far and what we've had, the key issue is to have what is called an integrated water resources management strategy.
I like that.
And this will be able to address water security from the different fronts. So from our side, we are applying, or we are attacking the water security issues from the quantity and the quality and how climate and human activities is affecting this.
I like that.
So we need to have a whole debate on what needs to form the entire circle, so that we have what is called an integrated water resources structure for the nation. And because this is a semi-arid nation that is water scarce to a very large degree, of course, the effort by the government is extremely above average. I think with more consolidated effort from all the stakeholders, Botswana should be water resilient in the future.
Absolutely. Those are the words of Professor Yashon Omar from the Professor of Geomatics at the University of Botswana. Professor Moalaf, let me bring you in to this opportunity to share your parting statement as a Botswana, as somebody who understands the value of water from a farming perspective, from a human rights perspective. What would you close in terms of educating the nation on this precious resource and from your informed stance?
Okay, thank you, moderator. Actually, I would like to tell Botswana that a lot can be done. We have also public campaign or educations or awareness to the people in terms of the status of the water. And like Prof. Uma highlighted, integrated water resources management is the way to go.
It's the solution.
It's an inclusive framework of planning which promotes coordinated management of land, water, and related resources for the present and without compromising the future availability of water, also preserving the ecosystems. It's for Botswana really to be open when these projects are done. Also, sometimes we go to Botswana to consult. It will be to ask them to open up to us. Of course, efforts are made to take care of them as much as possible. That's why even with the increasing block tariff structure, when you are using at the lower rate, you pay small. And the more the water you use, the charge per unit of water increases.
Absolutely.
So those who can't afford, they are taken care of and subsidized by the higher consumers.
Okay.
This is how we operate in a democracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I did not give you this opportunity, and allow me to give you this opportunity to, share your closing statements, understanding from different perspectives, understanding from a U.S. government perspective. What would you say to the nation of Botswana in closing?
I would say I would like to direct my message to the young people of Botswana.
Absolutely.
And just to point out that they should consider careers and jobs in the water sector and the sanitation sector as opportunities in their future. And that there is a lot of work to be done on the technologies and on transmitting water efficient ways of doing business, whether you're talking about agriculture or you're talking about industry.
Definitely.
And so that they really need to take stock of what those opportunities are and consider them, because a nation like Botswana is going to need them very much. And also, if they choose to go regionally, of course, those skills would be very, very useful to Southern Africa as well.
Those are the wise words of none other than Ann Dix, USAID Country Director. I also had the honor speaking to Professor Yashon Omar, Professor of Geomatics, University of Botswana, Professor Ditiro Benson Moalafi, Head of Wildlife and Aquatic Resources from the University of Botswana. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you and share some interesting points of view. We're going to cross over to Education USA, but according to the Economist Impact Report, more than 3.5 billion people live in areas that experience water scarcity. This is set to increase to more than 5 billion by the year that is 2050. Now, the U.S. government investment in mitigation of this problem is clearly inadequate, but with estimates of some 1.7 trillion already, they've made their efforts in partnership with various governments, and this is why we need to collaborate. This is not an American problem, it's not a Botswana's problem, it is our problem, and it is so important that we come together. Shout out to the U.S. government, shout out to USAID, shout out to all the academic institutions, including water utilities, the University of Botswana, Buan, USAID, U.S. Embassy, the BW government, for collaboration, because because whether we like it or not, collaboration is the secret to a better Botswana. Ladies and gentlemen, you're on the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy. On the other side of this, we're going to be discussing some academic opportunities, proudly brought to you by Education USA. Good afternoon.
The Stars and Stripes show is brought to you by the U.S. Embassy.
Well, it's Gabs FM, powered to engage your world. You haven't heard this voice in a while. She is the queen, a.k.a. the Education USA advisor, Wabile Tau. How are you? Long time no see, my friend. I heard you in Maung at one point. I saw you at secondary schools at one point.
Litlakane, actually.
Oh, you had...
Litlakane Lower Rapa, yeah.
Okay, just touch on your journey and what were you up to?
You know what, Swift? I work with so many people. So I was on vacation, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
And then there's an NGO called Leaders Without Borders.
Yes,
so
I'm aware of them.
They're doing a lot of work around mentorship.
Yes.
So I just jumped on board because if you follow my socials,
yes,
you know, I'm leveling up to level 4 this year.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Level 4. I love that.
I've decided to just do good deeds, 40 good deeds as I level up. So that was one of them.
Well, I love to compliment you. I think, you know, whether we like it or not, good deeds are taken for granted. I always say this about doing good deeds. Good deeds are actually benevolent selfishness. From this point of view, you doing the good deed does a lot more for you than it does for your beneficiary. You know what I'm saying?
That is so true, because even after I leave these sessions, every time when I do a good deed or I find somebody who says, oh my God, it's so rewarding.
Absolutely.
It's the best gift ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's touch on it. The Education USA, we know that there are grants open. We know that, you know, there's opportunities for Botswana to engage the U.S. Embassy via the Education USA office.
Yeah.
What do you have? What opportunities we want to chase the dream?
Well, first and foremost, I am chasing my dream. So one big thing is that I actually leveled up even at work.
Okay,
so I'm
nice.
actually even doing another portfolio that deals with young people and exchange programs.
Okay.
And so I'm also doing both Ed USA at the moment, as well as exchange programs for emerging voices.
Okay. I think that I might qualify. Emerging voices. I think I might qualify.
You might qualify.
Just might, yes.
And so today, when we're talking about conservation, so I'm here to actually, you know, give the ordinary NGOs, you know, and community-based organization, faith-based organization, an opportunity to actually do good in the natural resource space. So the U.S. Embassy has actually opened a grant opportunity for NGOs to come on board. It's called the U.S. Embassy Gaborone Ambassador Special Help Fund Program.
Yes.
So it is currently open right now. The deadline for that is August the 4th of 2023. And organizations can apply for this grant from $1,000 to up to a maximum of $20,000, you know,
Wow.
funding available. And, you know, we're doing this as a way to get even the people at the ground to actually do for their organization and to also do for their communities. And one of the objectives that the self-help grant actually focuses on is on community-based natural resource management.
I like that.
And so with that, whether your project should maybe focus on expanding effective community ownership or management of natural resources, as our speakers have been talking about, their academia. Right?
So, like, you know, would that qualify in terms of some of the things?
I think in this case, because there is a review board, you just need to make sure that whatever project that you are actually proposing is in alignment to what the objective is actually looking at.
Absolutely.
So if you're a natural hunter, you rehabilitating your hut in any way, let's say, for example, promotes conservation of natural resources, you have to articulate it and show it as to how that will transpire, right?
But let me ask you this. Can a beneficiary or somebody trying to apply for one of these call the U.S. Embassy and say, look, I'd like to engage the U.S. Embassy. You rightfully said you're trying to touch on grassroots beneficiaries. And they, ba bangwe ba nna ko dikgaolong in rural Botswana, they may not be efficient in grant writing, but they're showing so much potential. Are they able to call in or call your office and say, look, Matao, ke go tlulelo choma mo Gabs FM, ne ke sa go tlhaloganya mme gone, I have a pen, I have a paper, I have your grant, ke kgonne go printa your grant, it's right in front of me.
Yes.
Walk me through some of the things. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility.
Okay.
So the first thing is that I would encourage them going to the website, bw.usembassy.gov, and then download the Notice of Opportunity Fund.
Yes.
And if you need to reach out to the office that deals with that grant, email sshbotswana@state.gov. I'll repeat it, sshbotswana@state.gov. But even then, you know, public diplomacy section is here to help. I'm also here to help with my team. So you can even just direct your emails to paschabrone@state.gov or call us at the embassy. And most definitely, if I'm not doing it, somebody is definitely going to be helping you.
Well, how she introduced the show, introduced herself, she spoke about leveling up. And these are opportunities that are afforded to you by the U.S. Embassy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to do good, you can do good through the U.S. Embassy.
right.
The U.S. Embassy is not going to give it out to you just as easy as you think. But if you're able to articulate what you want to do, write what you want to do, engage the embassy, there's so many opportunities for us to do good within our communities. She mentioned faith-based organizations, non-profit, especially my VDC. Please can the ward development committees of each community invest in trying to at least approach the U.S. Embassy, fix up your community halls, introduce different components to your open spaces. And these are some of the things that you can do through the U.S. Embassy.
And young people as well should be engaging with their communities. I love what Andex said. You know, to the young people, this is an opportunity for you to actually be in partnership with your communities, with your leaders, and do something amazing. And the U.S. Embassy is here to help.
And that's how we close, ladies and gentlemen, as the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM. Please feel free to go to www.bwusembassy.gov or follow them on all social media platforms. They're always posting. And shout out to Maboro Dinku Community Garden. It's also a platform that one can visit and, you know, go and be and do recreational activities that of course uplift your mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about shared health, shared prosperity, and of course shout out to the U.S. Embassy, the BW government, and of course the U.S. government. # America in Botswana. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The Stars and Stripes show was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy.